We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
What are you reporting?
With someone or something crawling around out here.
But what I'm here to tell you is that everything we have been told is a lie. All part of cosmic unconsciousness.
They got away with killing Kennedy, they got away with the war hoax, they emboldened them to do this, and they got away with that. And until these criminals are caught and exposed, they're going to keep using our money to lie to us and to kill people who try to cover it up. That's my rant. Back to you, Michael.
Listen without the bunker. Where are you gonna go? Tell the truth. To find the truth. To find it here. In the bunker.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the bunker. I'm coming at you a little bit shooting from the hip today, as I feel compelled. I feel compelled to jump on and address something. I feel like I just got done telling everybody. I probably on the last episode, if I'm being honest, if memory serves me. I was explaining how, I'm looking at News Nation for these different clips, and I feel like, although I haven't looked into it too deeply, it seems like it's just a straightforward, I looked at some of their clips on other random things, current events and, news stories and so forth, and it didn't seem too sensationalized or crazy or anything. And so I think I endorsed the page. It's a good follow on YouTube. And I don't think I'm completely retracting that statement, although, okay, I'm retracting. I'm retracting the statement based on this latest chapter in, I can't even say the word disclosure without, without just beginning to come apart at the seams, because I feel like this disclosure has become a narrative, and it's brought to you by News Nation, as a matter of fact. The channel I was just sort of endorsing not that long ago. Welcome to 2025, everybody. We've got crazy events on steroids. We have Mockingbird on steroids. It's just, you name it, terrorist attacks. It's going to be a fun year. But anyway, so I hear recently about this disclosure, a new video, a new whistleblower. There's another word that I feel like is just getting used improperly. And I feel like it's being co-opted, in my honest opinion. It's being co-opted. And you've got to forgive my voice. I was just, for the past 4 or 5 days, sick as hell. Went back to work today. I probably shouldn't have. Probably should have stayed in bed another day, but here we are. But I definitely wanted to get on and address this quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes like all over the place during this episode, disclosure. that premiered on News Nation, and there is Ross Coulthart is an individual. He's a Kiwi, I believe, based on his accent. That is one of the personalities on News Nation, and has been posting videos with David Grush. He's been posting videos with Lou Elizondo. He's been on this UFO thing, right? Just generally speaking. And then I hear about, there's going to be disclosure. There's a new whistleblower. And I just have to say, I'm beginning to dislike the word whistleblower, because when I think of whistleblower, I think of like Edward Snowden. I think of, damn it, I can't remember his name. I'm going to think of it. I'm going to think of his name. I'm not continuing the show until I remember his name. Julian Assange. Holy crap, thank you. Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. These are whistleblowers. These are people that are blowing the whistle on something. Like if you have, if you work for an employer, a corporate employer, you fill out, you have to sign this paperwork, whistleblower protection and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, if there's a whistleblower that's supposedly leaking sensitive government information of any kind, then this individual is going to be hunted down. They're going to disappear. They're going to end up getting, I don't know, trapped in a foreign country because their passports and visas are freaking, deactivated, for example. They'll be placed on house arrest in a foreign country's consulate for years and years and years. My point is that whistleblowers are blowing the whistle on something, and there is usually a tremendous risk to themselves, to anyone they speak to. We heard a little bit of that when we spoke to Bart Sabrell. He has experience with some of this. Anyone that's exposing something, that is blowing the whistle on something, is doing so because there's information being suppressed. And where there's information being suppressed, there are authorities that usually are ready to step in and squash it. And that could mean disappearing somebody. That could mean, which has happened loads of times. That could mean discrediting someone and throwing them in prison, seizing all of their stuff. The techniques go on and on and on. But we know what a whistleblower is, and I feel like in the UFO community, this term whistleblower is just being used to the nth degree, and it's getting overused, it's getting watered down, and it's becoming silly at this point. So anyway, I'm going to play you some clips from this show that has almost 2 million views at this point, and this premiered just a couple of days ago as of this recording. And yeah, I'm going to play the intro. I'm going to try to get through it without stopping it too much. And then we're going to comment on it. I'm going to go through. I scribbled down some notes. It's not professional. Like I said, I'm shooting from the hip today. So I literally have just pieces of paper, just scribbled different notes and questions I had. And we're just going to go through it, and you're going to hear me flipping paper. It's going to be very old school, this episode, but I wanted to get this out because I have a lot of questions, and I don't see a whole lot of other people really covering this. But there are some interesting things that we need to address here. So let's get through the intro, and so that we know what we're talking about here.
Tonight, you've heard the testimony about a secret government program to retrieve and reverse engineer UFOs.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes. News Nation was the first to bring you this story.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
And now, for the first time anywhere, a military veteran comes forward to say he was part of that program, with video to prove it.
My work has included the recovery of downed UAP of non-human origin,
revealing how he retrieved alien craft.
Okay, first red flag. Well, he's reading this portion. Hold on, I'm going to go back here. You can't see this, you're only hearing this, but I'm telling you, like, he has prepared a statement, so he's like reading. Well, he's explaining why he's there. he's actually just like reading this. So this is something that was prepared, that he wrote beforehand. I mean, this is a possible red flag. Maybe I'm being too critical here. Or this was something that was prepared for him, but...
Now, for the first time anywhere, a military veteran comes forward to say he was part of that program, with video to prove it.
Right here, he's reading.
Has included the recovery of downed UAP of non-human origin.
Revealing how he...
So this is, the individual Jake Barber is his name. He was just reading that, so I'm not sure how I feel. I don't know. We'll continue.
He retrieved alien craft.
What did you see?
I saw an egg.
How it changed his life forever.
What we call a psionic component to the research and development of the UAP program.
And how he plans to do it again for the world to see.
So right out of the gate, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so we have a news program, we have a whistleblower coming forward, claiming to have more evidence that the United States government has been retrieving downed aircraft. And this individual claims that he was a helicopter pilot and that he was on these top secret missions with the Air Force, and he was transporting these downed crafts from one point to another. And I have many, many more questions about that, but we'll get to that. Let's try to get through this intro.
The skies are not classified. Your conscience can't be redacted.
His account, corroborated by his colleagues, and his injuries sustained during these operations, confirmed by a Stanford professor.
My personal experience is that there's something here.
Will the truth set him free, or will it get him killed?
People have been murdered.
That seems to be the case.
News Nation presents...
Okay, so... One of the things that jumps out at me with this is that, although this is a news program, I mean, this is shot. You might pick up, even just listening to it, you might pick up on some of the cues I'm talking about. And this is it's shot like a dramatization of like a mockumentary or something. Like if you watch it, I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can actually watch this, the exact video I'm watching for this episode, so that you can see and hear what's going on. If you haven't seen this already, if you've seen it, then I'm sure like you'll know what I'm talking about here. But this thing is not shot like a news program. It's just not. And it becomes, I mean, this is just the intro and I'm seeing it already. What I mean is like there's like dramatic, music drops, and there's like, there's like bass comes in for emphasis, and it's dramatized to the nth degree. But let's try to get through the intro.
Hunting UFOs, the crash retrieval whistleblower. In October 2024, an unknown man stepped out of the shadows, arriving in our nation's capital to deliver an important message about what the public calls UFOs, and the government calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs.
I'm here in D.C. this week to meet with members of Congress.
His name is Jake Barber, and he says that for the past 30 years he's worked in both an official and unofficial capacity for the United States government and its partners in the intelligence community.
Okay, so this individual, Jake Barber, was in the Air Force Special Operations, and they flash some of his orders up on the screen really quickly. There's some documents that flash up there that you can, as you're watching it, you can pause them, and I can see that he was. I saw Pope Air Force Base on there really quickly on one of the documents, which is the base that is adjacent to Fort Bragg, where I was. So that name jumped out at me. In him being in special operations, it makes sense because that's, special operations command is there. Military intelligence is located there. PSYOPs is located there. And so was I for a few years. So, but I mean, he seems to be highly decorated Air Force veteran. I don't think that's in question. But this whole thing is just, like I don't know, man. He steps out of the shadows and it's just too dramatized for me to be taken seriously as a news clip. Like if this were just an independent, like documentary short film, I would look at it with those expectations. But I expected to see a news report, and this doesn't come across as that. I can't sit here and say, oh, this is all BS and none of this is true. I can't say that, but it's odd the way that this is being, portrayed, the way it's being packaged in this report. Ross Colhart, who's the gentleman doing the interview, he asks Jake in the beginning, like, so what were you, meaning like in the service? And he says that, he was a highly talented aircraft mechanic that, was blessed to get assigned some special assignments here and there, right? Then he commenced to go into this long, list of units he was attached to and operations that he was connected to. They speak to some of his fellow soldiers who allegedly worked with him on these different assignments, and I'm not saying I doubt that. I mean, that could very well be the case, right? But so they interview a couple of people briefly that worked with him in the service and that vouch for him. I would trust him with my life, right? On and on and on. The usual stuff. When you're looking, when you're speaking to other individuals looking for, corroboration, like, oh yeah, this guy's legit, right? So there's a handful of people there that are speaking up for him. So, I mean, unless other evidence presents itself, I have no reason to doubt this guy served and is a legitimate service member or ex-service member. Could still be active. I don't really know. It seems like the way it's presented in this thing that he is a veteran at this point, but I can't say for sure. The one thing I found interesting, though, is one of the individuals that they spoke to speak up for and corroborate Jake's story is an individual named John Blitch, who a lieutenant colonel, retired, that has a doctorate in psychology, speaks up for him. Is he telling the truth? Yes. Kind of solidifies this guy's story about the UAP and stuff. And I just did a quick search on this this John Blitch character, and actually I found this article. Let me see here. I found this article on brainfacts.org. And this article is entitled People Behind the Science, John Blitch. And I confirmed some of the information in this article with some of the things they mention in this news report. And so I'm positive I have the right John Blitch, right? So this basically just is like a synopsis of his career. And one thing that kind of jumped out at me, which I found very interesting, John Blitch, this is in the second paragraph. I'll put a link to this article in the show notes as well, so you can check this out for yourself. John Blitch is a senior research scientist recently hired by the 711th Human Performance Wing at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, in the field of cognitive psychology and neuroscience. His current research focuses on the role of autonomy in human-robot interaction and training of unmanned system operators, and supervisors. So it goes on to say, a bunch of degrees, extremely impressive individual. But it says at the end of the article here that got his doctorate in 2014 in cognitive psychology from Colorado State University. He's published a number of research papers on the application of unmanned systems and human-robot interface technologies for search and rescue operations across a broad spectrum of military and humanitarian response activities. So, super interesting. I think he was involved in the cleanup and the search and rescue at 9/11 and some other disaster things, and I'm sure some military applications as well, which they can't talk about. But I just thought it was interesting that, like, this guy's involved with, like, unmanned like drones and stuff, like search and rescue drones and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I just found it interesting that we're talking about UAP, and, you know, there's been all this hype about the drones recently, and now here this individual speaking up for this Jake Barber just happens to be involved with, like, human to robot interfacing and unmanned systems. Like, I don't know. It just seemed odd to me. It could be nothing, but I don't know. But so Jake, we'll just call him Jake, describes these pick and drop operations. He's just like he's a transporter of these quote unquote UAPs in an area known as the range. He doesn't say what that is. He doesn't elaborate. Ross doesn't press him on it. And that's the other thing. There's no back and forth like he's being interviewed like you would expect in, like, a news program. You know what I mean? Like, you would expect if there's some answers left up there, or if something is said that's very vague, you would expect the interviewer to jump in and ask them to elaborate a little bit. Now, I understand a lot of that gets edited out for length. They want to keep this thing brief, right? But there's absolutely no point anywhere where he really presses him on any of the things he says. He just kind of takes it at face value and just goes with it. Now, I've interviewed people where I've done that too, so I can't necessarily hate on that itself, but I think with this topic, with this going on to a news program on the internet that's viewed now by, almost 2 million people, I don't know, I would expect a little bit of it at least, or at least an explanation as to why that isn't the case. I don't know. Anyway. So he talks about this area known as the range, right? Which is obviously military real estate somewhere. Some classified area, right? So now if these things are crashing there or landing there, then, okay, so the military is involved. So how do we know that what we're looking at is not just our tech, just some advanced thing we're working on, right? And Jake does make this claim that he was transporting crafts of non-human origin. And then he describes, like I think he mentioned it in the intro, he saw this egg. Now the egg UFO is interesting to me because I've spoken to people that have seen an egg-shaped UFO and have seen people inside of it looking at them. And so I know that this is a shape, crazy as it sounds, people have seen this. People have had abduction experiences and have seen this kind of thing. So my problem isn't with the egg itself, but it's like, it seems like there's just this assumption by Jake, and the interviewer doesn't press him again. There's this assumption that this egg is from some alien race. Well, how can we make that jump? Did you see aliens climb out of it? No. At no point during this interview, and this whole thing is it's about 42 minutes long, just under 42 minutes. There is no mention of him seeing like non-human beings at any point, which I think is odd. I mean, he does have what some could describe as a encounter with something. He at one point, and I'll bring us to that clip, he describes being affected by something psychically, which I find kind of interesting because that's something that has been reported by people. So is it legit? Is it not? I mean, but it's a common story that experiencers describe, both the shape of the craft and having some psychic things pop up, right? This isn't unusual, right? Now, a claim that Ross makes in the beginning of this is that News Nation, independently of Jake, have obtained evidence of a UAP retrieval. And I find this part of it very, very troubling, because if the claim in the news report was that this is Jake's footage and this is something that he was doing, this is something he was present for, this is the exact same thing he's describing as the thing that's in the video, right? But News Nation makes the claim, or Ross makes the claim, that they independently of Jake obtained this footage. And he doesn't describe where it came from at all. I mean, there's zero, of course you can't reveal your sources, but there is zero background or information given on that. It's just, we independently got this footage. And the independent footage just happens to completely match Jake's story about, transporting these things with a helicopter on a long line. And the video, if you haven't seen it, you can probably find it. It's everywhere. But the footage is, again, of this luminous, like not fluorescent, but like a pearlescent sort of egg at the end of a long line under a helicopter. There seems to be sound effects of a helicopter added to the video. I'm not sure if that's added in post or something. It seems like that same exact helicopter sound effect is added to many, many other portions of this video. It's sprinkled in everywhere. And that also calls into question the veracity of the video, because if this were a raw video and this were evidence, you would expect that whatever, I mean, sometimes you don't even have audio with a camera. If it's a camera that's stuck to the bottom of a helicopter, which is based on the view from this video, that's where it would have to be. It would have to be on the bottom of the helicopter. Would that camera even have audio on it? Maybe it would, maybe not. But we see this video and then we hear this helicopter sound effect added to the video, but then you hear that same sound effect added to other portions of it. Like I said, it's dramatized. So that's why it calls this all into question. And what's interesting too about the footage is that Ross claims, like I said, that they independently got this footage, but at no point in this video do they show them showing that video to Jake. Is this the thing you saw specifically? They later on in the video, Jake shares another portion of a video, and you can see a couple of frames of a video where he's claiming like, we saw this too while we were out sky watching, right? But at no point do you see Ross showing him that footage, this egg footage from the, on the long line. And you don't see him show Jake the video. He doesn't make a reference to the video, but does say that this was obtained completely independently. Very, very interesting. But so the next sort of jump that this video makes, it goes right from, okay, like I saw this egg, this was my job, I transported, what he describes as mystery boxes, so he wouldn't necessarily know what was even in them. He was just like, his job is to pick it up here, take it here, a handful of miles or 20 miles or so, drop it here, make sure that, you keep security until that thing gets safely on this truck and drives away, or whatever, right? Well, okay. But then the video just sort of makes this jump right into what he describes as psionic assets. Now, I know what psionics means, only because that was an element of Dungeons and Dragons growing up. So that's the only reason why I know what that word means, but yeah, we'll continue. Here's another clip.
What was coming down the line next for me, and that is the path which led to the UAP subject.
Barber says he was contracted as a helicopter pilot and was part of a team assigned to retrieve crashed aircraft at an undisclosed testing facility in the desert. And we're not only talking about conventional airplanes or drones.
A lot of the work we did was on what I call the range, where the U.S. government and its private partners use to test all kinds of things. Weapon systems and resilience to weapon systems of certain craft. And so you see a lot of exciting things.
So right there, he basically admits that, yes, this is a testing range. So, I mean, are we talking about Groom Lake? Are we talking about Area 51? Are we talking about who knows, right? But right there is kind of a subtle admission that what they're talking about is it's on a test range. So he was like tasked to pick up certain crafts or boxes or items or whatever, pick them up and bring them from point A to point B. And I don't know, there's too many holes in the story, and there's too many gaps that are just not addressed and they're just brushed right over. And this, coming from a news site, I mean, news is even in the name, I find these oversights numerous, and I find them troubling. But either way, let's continue. And he's getting to the point now where he is talking about his involvement in the UAP.
There's no doubt Jake Barber is an accomplished helicopter pilot. This is the kind of work Barber says he did after he left the Air Force as a private contractor, working for the defense industry and the US government at a secret location he calls the Range. That's where Barber and his team were asked to retrieve downed craft, the likes of which he says were not just advanced tech the public has never seen. They were built by non-human intelligence. So tell me about the moment when you realised that you were involved in a retrieval of non-human technology, alien tech.
So it became very clear the first time our communication process and procedure was modified. And then just visually looking at the object on the ground, you could tell that it was extraordinary and anomalous. It was not human.
How close did you get?
Well, I was a helicopter pilot, and I operate with 150 foot to 200 foot long line. So I got within 150 feet of this object.
What did you see?
I saw an egg, a white egg.
Was there any visible propulsion system on it?
No, not what we would know. There's no engine, there was no thermal signature. I was operating at night when I finally came in to pick it up, so I'm working under night vision goggles at the time. And it was quite clear. I flipped them up, flipped them down, and looked at it a couple of different ways.
How large was the object?
I would say approximately 20 feet, plus or minus a little bit, about the size of a large SUV.
Did it have any seams?
No.
And it was pure white?
It was like pearly white, like a metallic pearly white, the best I could assess.
Okay, so a couple of things I need to address there is, first of all, this object was on the ground. He went to go pick it up, right? So I'm assuming that he did not even see how this thing was flying. He doesn't describe seeing it land. He doesn't describe seeing it flying around. He describes seeing it on the ground, picking it up, and this footage that they share later on in the video is just this helicopter pilot setting this thing back down on the ground. Now, is it weird? Yes. If I were a helicopter pilot and I were told to go to these coordinates, pick up this highly sensitive object, bring it to these coordinates, and I saw a large egg, I would probably feel like I was being punked. This was some kind of joke. Like, oh, what am I picking up, a dinosaur egg? Bringing it to, that's a Tyrannosaurus egg? What the hell? What's going on here? But the assumption is that this is something of non-human origin. Well, how can you, I mean, chickens can make eggs. I can make something egg-shaped. You could make it out of anything you want. Plaster Paris is of chicken wire. You can make an egg shape out of something. That's not something that's not doable by humans. He doesn't see this thing flying or landing. And it's one of these things, it's one of these oversights that I'm talking about, where they just kind of brush over the fact that, like, how can you say that this thing that looks just like an egg, and they show it in the video, it looks just like a giant egg. If it were glowing, flying, if it were doing something, if I saw aliens step out of it, that's a whole other story. Now we're talking. But none of that is even implied here. And they just kind of brush over that really quickly and just assume that this thing is of non-human origin. That's a problem. Because let's keep everything in perspective here. This Jake Barber is claiming that he was an individual that was transporting these things from point A to point B. He's not claiming that he saw them flying. He's not claiming that he saw anything other than this egg laying on the ground at the range, quote unquote, and that he's picking it up at point A and he's bringing it to point B, and it's being taken to what he described as being taken to a secure facility, right? That's a safe assumption. But there's a whole lot of assuming going on here because he does not, like I said, he's not seeing the thing flying, landing, crashing. He doesn't see beings climb out of it. He makes no claim anywhere whatsoever that he sees any kind of beings or anything like that. But I think Ross actually asks him, like, how did you know that this was from non-human intelligence?
You know that egg-shaped object was non-human in origin?
Well, visually, after seeing all kinds of things in my past, it was clearly something that was ridiculously looking. It's inconsistent with anything I'd ever seen before. I can also tell you that the reaction by my team, we all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary.
And at no stage were you ever subsequently told that the craft was of non-human origin?
I will tell you that during this process over the last couple of years, it's been confirmed to me by ranking members of the UAP task force that what we were working with that night was in fact an HI, and it was not a unique experience.
What do you think that object was?
I don't know. Again, I'm security and transportation. I moved it, loaded it on a truck, and it went to...
Where would it go? Where would it be taken?
It would be taken to a secure facility, but again, my role stops once I deliver it.
Yes, it's so.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah, okay, this thing's weird. It looks like a big giant egg. But these guys aren't seeing it flying, landing, crashing, shooting lasers. There's nothing climbing out of it. He asks him straight up, like, what do you think this thing was? And he says he doesn't know. Which, that makes sense. Based on what we know about him just picking this thing up at point A and bringing it to point B and, providing security, and then the thing goes away. I just don't understand how we can jump to non-human origin based on this information that he said that he saw. And he's being, again, vague about, this in context of other things I've seen. Again, doesn't go into that detail there. He knows this is of non-human origin. I'm not sure how we can make that case. Either way, this is where the tale gets weird. Believe it or not, this is where it takes a turn for, like, X-Files.
As he prepared to transport that so-called 8-gong from the pickup site to the drop site.
Oh, the 8-gong is this disc-like UFO that he said that he picked up and delivered a couple of these.
something even more intense happened to him that would change his life forever.
This is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life I'm about to share with you, so bear with me. So as I get closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song, and it was very disruptive to me because I had a very practical responsibility at the time to operate a helicopter in the mountains at night, and I began wondering what was wrong with me. It was late. I'm like, am I just stressed? Am I tired? And I don't know. But as I came over this object for the pick, it was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. And then
So, yes, and he goes on to describe this connection. And he claims that this being reached out and is still connected to him somehow, and that he is still getting guidance from this individual, presence, being, whatever it is. It was in this UFO. And not sure what to make of it. The transitions, like I said, and the way it's presented is very odd and very dramatized, and I just have a lot of problems with it. They go on to describe, I'm not going to play any more of this, but he goes on to describe that they have these psionic operators who are working for the intelligence agency that are like, I guess they're psychics, right? And they're supposedly able to psychically connect to the spaceships or the eggs or whatever, and they can actually call them down, cause them to crash or steer them to land, like essentially take control of the crafts, if you want to call them that. And it's just the way it just transitions from one thing to the next to the next. And then at the end of this video, he goes on to talk about how he has this team of people that worked with him in the military, and now they're this independent sky watching group. It just seems very strange. I watched it a couple times. I'm not sure what to make of it, to be honest with you. But like I said, I will put this YouTube link in the show notes so you can check out the whole video yourself. And I believe there are some follow-up videos as well, so you can watch them and come to your own conclusion. But I don't know. To me, it just feels weird. It feels really weird. It feels off. It feels like a dramatized, like professionally done video with just too many like dramatic effects and dramatic sound effects and music and stuff. I don't know. Coming from a news organization, it's weird. It's weird. And one thing I thought about too afterwards when I was thinking about it was like, wait a minute. So then you guys have these psionic operators who are like somehow capturing UFOs and bringing them in, but yet they need a whole team of people with a helicopter to pick them up and like take them somewhere. Like, if they can take control of the ships, why don't they just like fly them to the hangar, just straight to Wright Pad or Area 51 or wherever the hell. Some hole in the desert. We don't even know the name of it probably. But I don't know. I had a lot of questions. Like I said, I've just been very ill, so not quite with it yet. But yeah, I wanted to definitely jump on and record this episode just to kind of address this and raise these questions because, yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of hubbub around this video since it dropped, and I think it's been a kind of a flop. I mean, I'm not sure how many people have watched this video. Let me refresh it.
Had tuned in.
It still says 1.9 million. So, yeah, but I haven't heard a whole lot of activity take place around it or seen any buzz around it or anything since it dropped. And I see a lot of people on social media commenting that it's kind of a flop and that's another letdown. And, you know, people are just like, whatever, kind of done with it by now. Many people are anyway. But like I said, you can follow the link in the show notes. You can watch the video yourself and make your own judgment. Take notes like I did. Watch it a couple times. You know, really think about what questions you would want to ask. I mean, it's yeah, it came across very strange to me as far as a news update. And I swear, I just hear the word disclosure, and I'm almost kind of like half turned off as soon as I hear that term. But hey, we'll see. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. And yeah, we will see you next time in the bunker.